From Yahoo Finance, this is Ballots and Dollars, a podcast about the politics that affect your pocketbook. I'm Rick Newman.
And I'm Alexis Christoforous. Today we are talking about free money from the government. It seems to be the platform that Democratic presidential candidate Andrew Yang is running on. The businessman proposing $1,000 a month for every American age 18 and over, no matter how rich or poor. And Rick Newman, seems a little out there, but it's been enough to keep Yang in the race and in those debates. How realistic is it?
Would you take the money?
Sure, why not?
I guess.
What are the strings attached?
The string. Well, this is an interesting part of the proposal. So what he's talking about is this idea called universal basic income, or UBI. This idea has been around for a while, and there have been some experiments with it. And he calls it the freedom dividend. So that's he's branding it the Andrew Yang freedom dividend.
That's pretty good. Okay.
Basically, the idea is he wants to give everybody. He wants the U.S. government to give every adult American, regardless of income, $1,000 a month, $12,000 a year.
What if you're already on some sort of program? You get assistance from the government already. Do you still get this?
No, you would basically have to make a choice. You would either choose one or the other. So you'd run the numbers and you'd say, well, what's the value of whatever food aid I get, or any kind of welfare or anything like that. And is it, I think that's a better deal than the $12,000, or do I just want to have the $12,000? And the idea behind UBI is that individuals will do a better job of spending the money to do whatever. I mean, there are no rules on what you can do with the money. So yes, you can spend it all at the casino, or you can buy vodka and cigarettes if that's what you want to do. You're allowed to do that. But the bet is that people won't do that. And what most people will do with the money is spend it where they need it the most. They could use it to cover rent. You could use it to help pay for education. Whatever, anything you want. Childcare.
I'd like to believe that were true, Rick. I really would. I'd like to believe that if you gave Americans a little extra money, that all of them would do the right thing and maybe save for college or pay down some bills. But we know, look at why Social Security even came to be, right? We have that as a safety cushion because the government didn't think we were going to be okay on our own to save for the golden years.
And, I mean, Social Security came into existence because there was political pressure to make it happen. And by, I think, virtually all accounts, Social Security has done a good job of helping older people, seniors, stay out of poverty. I mean, it was really an anti-poverty program at the beginning. That was the idea. So you ask, would people really spend this money responsibly? I have generally a dim view of humanity.
I know you do, Rick.
So
I tend to in this area too.
Skeptical.
I'm sorry to say.
But let's say most people did spend it. I'm sure a lot of people would. I mean, there's certainly some truth to think about single working moms, for example. That this kind of money could be a lifeline. It'll help you pay for childcare so you could get to work. Whatever.
Undoubtedly, and Yang is thinking, look, they'll just pump it back into the economy, right? That's his pitch. We give you the money. It helps everybody because then you go out and you spend and it gets pumped back into the economy.
Right.
Sounds good on paper, right? But I'm not a believer.
I'm not even sure it sounds good on paper when you start to talk about what it costs. But let's just talk about the proclivities of humankind. And I mean, it's just a given that some people would waste the money. Some people would abuse the privilege, basically. You'd have people spending it on drugs and, all kinds of things that are never going to do any good for anybody. And that would get press. That would generate bad press. And even if that was a minority of the people getting the money, it would turn people against it. I think, we don't have a handout society, or at least there are pockets of strong opposition to government handouts. And this would just royal people, I think. I mean, I think it would be irresistible for reporters to go find these stories of abuse and report them. So it would get a disproportionate amount of attention. And this would be very expensive. So people would be paying taxes for this, and they would have the idea that that's my taxpayer dollars helping some guy who's an opioid addict or a fentanyl addict or something, Mm-hmm. So I think for sure there would be sort of public image problems with it.
This universal basic income, is it employed elsewhere in the world? And if so, is it working?
No country that I know of does this on a sort of
regular
common basis.
Annual basis, okay.
Finland did an experiment. They chose 2,000 people randomly who were unemployed a couple of years ago. I think this began in 2018. So they found 2,000. No, it ended in 2018. So I guess it started in 2017. They found 2,000 people who were unemployed and gave them about $630 per month. No strings attached. What can you do with the money? Do whatever you want with the money. And then they also established a control group of 2,000, I think it was 2,000 people who did not get the UBI, the Universal Basic Income, and they tracked the two groups to figure out what kind of differences are there. And what they found was the people who got the check were happier, less stressed out, but it did not do anything to improve employment among those people, which is what they were hoping. They were hoping that this would help people sort of get their lives together, firm up their finances a little bit to help them work.
Quality of life?
Well, the people said it did because they were less stressed out. They knew they were going to get this check every month.
Well, I can understand that. But it didn't incentivize them to go out and find work.
Correct. And so it had no sort of large-scale societal benefit. And I think if you were going to do anything like this, even on a limited scale, it would have to work economically. So it would have to pay for itself more than just a one-for-one basis. You know, when you talk about spending taxpayer dollars, you want to spend it on stuff where you're going to get more than $1 back. And there are better programs and worse programs for that, and it's inexact trying to measure what's a good program. When you give people money, they spend it. I mean, that's especially if you give lower income money or poorer people money, they sometimes spend all of it. And economists say that generally generates a better than one-to-one sort of economic return ratio.
Because you're spreading the wealth, so to speak.
And you're generating other economic activity. Right. But that is supposed to boost employment, and that did not happen in this Finland case. So they did the experiment for a little more than a year, I think, and then they stopped it, and they don't have any plans to do it anymore.
So that's not very encouraging.
It didn't go anywhere.
So he does talk about how he would pay for this. And what it amounts to, what I read, is that it's a tax on us all.
It's a tax on us all, and it's a big tax on us all. What he does not do is tell you how much this is going to cost. So I just did the math. So if you give $12,000 a year to every adult American, there are about 250 million adult Americans over 18 and over. And if you add it up, it's $3 trillion. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Let me just put that in perspective.
Yeah.
Total government spending right now is about $4.5 trillion per year. So you would almost double what the government is government taxpayer government dollars going out the door.
It's absurd. What are Americans by and large behind this? There's got to be some surveys out there that show how people feel about
Younger
this.
people like it. Older people don't like it. In other words, the people paying taxes don't like it. People who are not paying taxes or paying very little taxes, very minimal taxes, do like it.
And the crazy thing is, if you have 5 people in your household who are 18 and older, in that one household, you've got an extra $5,000.
That's right.
A month.
Yeah, a month,
not a year.
Right.
Okay, so talk to me about how he wants to pay for this.
So it's really easy. All he would do is impose a 10% value-added tax. There would be a financial transaction tax, other taxes on the wealthy. I mean, so on and so on. A 10% value-added tax. So.
Wow.
That is a big tax.
Yeah,
we do not have a value-added tax. So what a value-added tax is?
So we go from 0 to 10%.
Yeah, and I guess you could phase it in, which is the way you'd have. If you imposed a tax like that all at once, it would really hurt the economy because it just takes money out of people's pockets. Mm-hmm. So we do not have a value-added tax in the United States, but most countries do have a value-added tax. It's basically a national sales tax, and it's actually a good tax. That's what economists say and tax experts say because it sort of taxes the right thing. And people might be thinking to themselves, oh, that sounds terrible. We already have state sales taxes and local sales taxes in some cases. Now you want to put a national sales tax on everything. It would drive up prices, but as a concept, it's better to tax consumption, stuff we buy, than to tax income, which is labor. So when you tax income, it's actually a disincentive to work because it lowers the return on labor. And, ordinary people don't necessarily think that way. It lowers the return on labor. But they do think if I'm going to be paying X percent on my income, Do I really want to work the 40th hour or the 50th hour or the 60th hour? At some point, you say it's not worth it. If you shifted away from income taxes and you shifted more toward consumption taxes, you would give people more incentive to work. And they would generate more they'd work more, they'd generate more economic activity, and that would probably be good on net. Now, that's not what Yang is talking about. He's just talking about leaving all the other taxes in place and imposing this new value-added tax. So stuff would get more expensive, and there would have to be other taxes on top of that. Also, a new payroll tax on the wealthy. So if you earn above, I think it's $250,000, you'd be paying a new payroll tax.
So I have to
That's a lot of new taxes.
Yeah, exactly. So how is this supposed to be good for the economy in the long run?
I'm not sure it is supposed to be good for the economy in the long run. So the reason that UBI has gotten sort of again, this is an old idea.
Right.
I read somewhere that Thomas More wrote about this concept in his book Utopia. What year was that again?
Nope,
1500s? Was it 1500s or 1600s?
I have to think so. I can look that up as we go.
You can Google it while we're looking.
All right.
So while we're talking. So the idea, this has kind of gotten popular again because of what's happening with the technology economy. So some people think that we are going to get to a point where robots and automation are going to do most of the jobs, and there's just not going to be much for humans to do. And that, national wealth will be largely controlled by technologists, people who run Facebook and Google and Amazon and Apple, and that the rest of us are just not going to have anything to do. Now, that hasn't happened yet. I mean, there were people who thought this should be happening by now, and the unemployment rate, lo and behold, is at 3.7%. It's very low. There's plenty of work for people, work in the service sector. Healthcare is growing. Did you find where Thomas
I'm
More's
looking,
Utopia?
and we were pretty off because Thomas Paine was born in
Thomas More,
1737.
not Paine. More, M-O-R-E.
I think we're gonna have to get this out.
This is high-speed journalism, real-time high-speed journalism as we do a Google search. So anyway, the idea is if we get to that point where robots are doing all the jobs and there's no work for any of the rest of us, and the rich people, this small cluster of rich people have all the money, well, just basically take some money from them and give everybody free money. That's it. But I mean, that hasn't happened yet. So we have displacement in the labor force. We certainly have a labor force that heavily favors people with technology skills and things like that. But that hasn't made the rest of everybody else irrelevant. It's just made it harder to get ahead. And by the way, people can go and get those technology skills and do things like operate, sophisticated assembly line equipment that requires some, technical knowledge to know how to do that. So anyway. That's the idea behind UBI, but it doesn't reflect the real economy.
No, and he's the only candidate, by the way, pushing an idea like this.
The only major candidate.
It seems really gimmicky to me. I mean, even at the most recent debate, it just seemed like one of those late night commercials. Call in now, but wait, there's more. You'll get $1,000 a month, every month.
I mean, I agree. Nonetheless, Andrew Yang kind of came from nowhere. Nobody heard of him before the 2020 presidential campaign started, and he is hanging in there. I mean, it's notable that he's made the cut for all the debates. I mean, Kirsten Gillibrand, who's a senator, did not make the cut for the last debate, and she dropped out.
Neither did de Blasio from New York. The New Yorkers aren't doing too well. Both de Blasio and Gillibrand
maybe the country's telling us New York or something.
To drop out, perhaps.
So, Andrew Yang has this, he doesn't have a huge following, but he has a very devoted following. So, that high intensity people who like his ideas. And when he he's running this contest, which he announced during the third Democratic debate, that he's going to actually give 12 months worth of UBI to, I think, 10 contest winners. And he said, register for the contest on our website, and he got almost 500,000 people who registered for the $1,000 a month.
What's supposed to happen if you get it? Are you supposed to log how you spend it, or is this going to be his little test case?
I think it's a publicity stunt.
It's a publicity stunt.
I don't know that you can do a meaningful test case with 10 people.
10 people.
But he's unless this turns out to be illegal somehow. There were some questions about whether. I mean, it's like campaign money. Can you just take a campaign money and give it out to people, or does it have to come from some dedicated source?
Sticky, yeah.
But let's say he does it. They're going to be 10 people. who are going to get $1,000 a month for the next year. And note the timing. So he's literally giving money away to voters in the 12 months prior to an election.
It sounds like buying the vote to me.
Well, it sounds like buying 10 people's vote as a
but it can
as
spread.
a demonstration
those 10
project.
people know 10 people,
Right.
and those 10 people know 10 people.
And who knows? Maybe those 10. Those 10 people are probably Andrew Yang fanboys and women. And they may be a year from now singing the praises of Andrew Yang and saying, "Here's what the $12,000 allowed me to do."
Look, we're bashing UBI, but are there parts of it? Is the spirit of it something that perhaps Congress should be embracing, retooling, and use for the American people?
I don't know. I'm not feeling it, honestly. Are you feeling it?
I'm really not. I was just looking to. You're a creative guy, and I thought you might have an idea.
Tons of safety net programs already, and you could certainly argue that they should work better.
I guess the big difference is it's not need-based. Right, it's the one sort of assistance that wouldn't be need-based and so is
rich
that the
people
right
would
thing?
get it. Rich people would get it.
Right.
I guess you could turn it down, or
give it to charity, or have it as a tax write-off.
Andrew Yang says the purpose of that is to first simplify the administration of it, so you don't have to have some government bureaucracy that establishes your worthiness, whatever that threshold is. Would it be an income-based threshold, probably, or a wealth-based threshold, or something? So you eliminate the the bureaucracy, but he says also it would eliminate any stigma that comes with it.
You mean talking about inequality? I doubt this is really going to help move the needle when it comes to income inequality.
I do too. It's basically a giant redistribution program.
Right.
You're taking money from one group of people, which is all consumers, and you're giving it to another group of people, which is sort of the same, but not exactly the same, which is all adults. So you're not giving a like amount. You're not taking an amount from the consumers and giving the same amount to other consumers or giving it back to people. You're taking more from people who buy more. Mm-hmm. And through the value-added tax or the national sales tax, and then you're just giving a like amount to everybody.
Did he mention at all if this would be taxed as income, or do you get?
I don't. That's a good question. I don't know, but it would be self-defeating, I think, if you taxed it.
Right. That's why I was curious.
And it's not labor income per se.
Right.
It's
like a
gift.
Know
what it is.
Right. Under our current laws right now, you can gift me. I think $10,000, up to $10,000 a year, without me having to pay taxes on it.
I'm not planning to.
Okay.
No offense.
I'm not planning to gift you $10,000 either, so don't worry about it.
But I'm glad to know that I have that option.
Oh, sure. Everybody knows that now. I put it out on the table. Andrew Yang, though, how much longer is he going to be in this race, do you think?
I feel like maybe he has staying power. I mean, he has.
He doesn't win the nomination, though.
No, I don't think so. But people have been. You're a fool to predict who you think is going to win this far out. There are lots of examples of somebody who was way behind at this point and had a surprise showing in Iowa or New Hampshire, and suddenly, is at the top of the field. I think John Kerry in 2004 was like number 5 or 6 in the polls at this point, and he ended up getting the Democratic nomination. So a lot can change. One of the things about everything Andrew Yang is proposing is, he's talking about an extra payroll tax, for instance. Well, we're probably going to need to raise the payroll tax just to keep Social Security solvent. So
that's number one.
So that's one of the ways he wants to raise money for UBI. But we have a lot of other things we have to fund, and I sort of feel like the central problem here is there's a lot of broken stuff in the government that needs fixed before you ever talk about something like UBI. I mean, healthcare is the most obvious. Mm-hmm. Medicare is going to start running short of money around 2024, I think, 2025. That's less than 10 years from now, and that's going to happen. That's not theoretical. That is actually going to happen. Most of the other Democrats are talking about how do we close the gap on healthcare so that it's more affordable and the 30 million people who don't have insurance are covered somehow. That's really expensive. We got Medicare for All is obviously one, but other ideas for how to do that. It just doesn't feel like the number one thing we need to do is give $12,000 a year to everybody, including people who don't need it.
I'm with you on that, but I'm sure the UBI freedom dividend debate will continue as long as Andrew Yang is on the debate and campaign circuit.
And if he keeps giving away money.
All right. By the way, Thomas More, Utopia, 1516.
So we think that was the internet told me somewhere that was sort of the first mention of something resembling a universal basic income.
So everybody go check it out now.
So this idea is almost 600 years old?
Yeah, run and get that Utopia book, look it up, and see if Andrew Yang's got something.
By the way, if this idea has been around for 600 years and nobody has ever implemented it, I think that tells you something.
Perhaps, but you never know. All right, we want to thank everybody for checking out this Ballots and Dollars podcast. I'm Alexis. Follow me at Alexis TV News on Twitter.
And follow me at Rick J. Newman, and be nice, for Christ's sake.
We love to hear from you guys, good, bad, or indifferent. Look forward to another podcast next week. In the meantime, please do go and rate and review what you just heard.
It's the best history lesson you'll get anywhere.